Welcome to the 13th episode of INSE Miliye. I am Madhuri Sharma, a faculty member at the Insurance Institute of India, Mumbai. I am pleased to introduce our guest, Arup Chatterjee, Principal Financial Sector Specialist with the Asian Development Bank. I have known Arup for over 33 years, having met him after we both joined the Oriental Insurance Company as direct recruit officers. Arup was seconded to the Indian Insurance Regulatory Authority in 1997 and was involved in opening the once monopolistic insurance sector to competition. He then served the Insurance Regulatory and Development Authority of India with distinction in its formative years. In 2005, Arup left India to join the International Association of Insurance Supervisors at the bank, and he was the first Indian to do so. And it was the bank at International Settlements in Basel, Switzerland as principal administrator. Because of his strong interest in working in the financial sector policy and regulatory space, he transitioned to join yet another premier institution, the ADB, and has spent close to 11 years in Manila and is involved in financial, governance, risk management and regulatory reforms in the insurance and pension sector in Asia and the Pacific. Welcome to this virtual platform of Insurance Institute of India, Arup.
Merci beaucoup, Madhuri, for a very generous introduction, one that only a batchmate could make.
Yeah.
I
Arup,
never thought I would have the pleasure of a tete-a-tete with you after 3 decades. How time flies. So I wish to begin by expressing my most profound appreciation to the Insurance Institute of India for providing this platform.
Arup, I would like to ask you what triggered your first shift in orbit, and did cutting your teeth in the public sector insurance industry offer any help?
Madhuri, joining the insurance industry was not my first choice, but sometimes not getting what you want is a wonderful stroke of good luck. And I never once regretted knowing what I didn't know, because this career in the end is exactly what I wanted. My professional journey has given me the opportunity to travel to 97 countries, trust strangers, experience cultures, learn new languages, and exchange ideas with the brightest minds. My understanding of insurance sector's perennial struggle with trust has improved. It offers protection solutions. Not only that, but it also enables financial inclusion, de-risks investments, and helps in crowding in long-term funding for infrastructure investments. One person I wish to thank in this pursuit of mine is my wife. Without her support, I wouldn't have made it so far. In 1988, when I joined the insurance industry, the industry suffered underwriting losses for the first time, and it was mainly due to a bleeding motor portfolio. I was posted in the loss control measures department, where I carried out detailed portfolio analysis and technical audits for improving the underwriting and claims management. And this activity was pan-India and intercompany across all the subsidiaries. Mind you, GIC was still the holding company. Later, I assisted the Secretariat of the Committee on Reforms in the Insurance Sector, the Malhotra Committee, and also several other technical committees set up by the GIC on technical provisioning, solvency analysis, and so on. So the bird's eye view that I had and the insights I gained in a short time led to my secondment to the interim IRA. That was in 1997. So the path I trod is not the beaten path. This stint equipped me to transition to the new orbital of policy making and regulations.
Very well said. Very well said. Arup, I would like to know, what do you cherish most from your stint with the Insurance Regulatory and Development Authority of India?
Well, my time at the IRDAI took place in the initial days of the liberalized insurance sector in India. So it was both for the regulator and the insurance industry participants. We were learning how to regulate the market and work in a liberalized environment. And it was essential for us to have an open mind, to stay current and abandon outdated thinking. And what I cherish most about that time is the opportunity it gave me to learn, unlearn, relearn, and evolve.
Yeah, right. Now that you have worked at the epicenter of financial sector regulation at Basel, what is your take on the current state of play of financial sector regulation in India, and where do we need to catch up in the insurance sector?
A key benchmark which for the level of sophistication of financial sector regulation is the level of observance of the international financial standards and codes brought out by the standard setting bodies. In the case of insurance, it is the IAIS in Basel. So the last financial sector assessment revealed that supervision and regulation of the sectoral regulators, i.e. RBI, SEBI, and the IRDAI, have remained strong and have improved in recent years. So that is very, very welcome and very, very promising. But areas for catch-up in the insurance sector would be implementation of risk-based capital covering all risks. A more risk-based framework for supervision also needs to be adopted. That will help in assessment of risk inherent in insurers' strategy, business model, and operations, and also improving their controls. Actions also need to be initiated to disclose environmental, social, and governance, that is the ESG risks, and also assessing their resulting impact on the insurers.
Yeah, very rightly said. Arup, I have known you to be a very prolific reader, and you have been associated with disaster risk financing. You would recall that sometime back there was a report from Lloyd's of London stating that India has the second largest insurance gap in the world of almost $27 billion after China, where the underinsurance or insurance gap is over $76 billion. How serious would you think this issue is?
Madhuri, you are so right. And this is just the property protection gap or the impact of risks from natural hazards and climate change, which Mark Carney mentioned as the tragedy on the horizon. And this is just the tip of the iceberg. We need to deal with many other protection gaps resulting from extraordinary causes requiring unique remedies. India's mortality protection gap, according to Swiss Re, stood at $16.5 trillion in 2019, which is 83% of the GDP. More than 3 in 4 households remain in financial danger if a breadwinner dies. The health protection gap in India in 2017 was $369 billion, and the financial stress caused by out-of-pocket expenses represents a relatively high share of household income, even leading to non-treatment of ailments. We have a retirement savings gap, and in 2015, the World Economic Forum estimated it at $3 trillion, and it is forecast to grow by 10% each year to about $85 trillion in 2050. So we might lose the advantage of a demographic dividend if we don't plan now. What's more is also with the Digital India vision and with increased use of digital technology, we also face cyber threats, and India ranks third amongst the nations. A related gap is also the infrastructure financing gap, the Bijli Pani Sadak. India's infrastructure financing requirements ranges from anywhere between 150 to 300 billion a year for hard infrastructure alone. And this is and when you add the social infrastructure spending such as health, education, the gap will almost doubles that way. So the protection gaps are the manifestations definitely of unresolved development problems. There is this experiment on development which is still happening in India. It is still not complete. However, well-designed insurance and pension products can lower the need for precautionary savings, increase disposable income, boost consumption, and reduce the protection gap. And the contractual savings which are accumulated by the insurance companies can be better intermediated through investment in infrastructure projects.
Yeah, so it's evident that we really need some urgent solutions. Arup, do you think the insurance industry is prepared to bite the bullet now?
We need to act urgently, Madhuri, and we need to implement strategies to build resilience, to reduce potential shocks, and address underlying factors to manage the residual risk better. Investing with a strong focus on ESG principles will endure, and it is likely to be a vital aspect of the rebuilding of the post-COVID-19. The insurance industry, of course, can play a role in de-risking investments and mobilizing long-term private capital by combining the investments with insurance, technology guarantees, warranties, and political risk insurance. When standard risk mitigation practices cannot quantify financial stresses, such as those posed by climate change, they introduce significant residual risk potential. We generally recommend a risk-layered approach, which should be considered in order to match the financing mechanisms to the severity and the probability of events. And there can be a menu of financial instruments such as budget reserves, contingent credit, risk sharing, and risk transfer. Governments can reduce the volatility of financial losses following a shock by transferring some of their contingent liabilities to the private sector, either by an annual payment of insurance premium or linking the existing public insurance schemes with private insurance solutions, and also setting up insurance pools. The insurance industry clearly is prepared and can contribute by offering affordable, fit-for-purpose risk sharing and transfer solutions.
So, in this context, then, do you think that InsurTech is well positioned to play a role too?
Of course. High transaction costs and lack of risk data have prevented insurance from fulfilling its expected role. Deployment of sophisticated climate, geological, and pandemic models enables better calibration of risk, besides helping policymakers to take more informed decisions for risk mitigation and risk reduction. Leveraging technology like the IoT, the big data, artificial intelligence, machine learning, blockchain, with appropriate consumer protection can also cut up to 10% of premium costs and 8% in claims expenses while ensuring stable margins.
Yeah, Arup, you have mentioned that you have traveled extensively, so I'm changing track slightly to ask you, which country has impressed you the most and why?
Oh, without any blinking of an eyelid, it is Egypt. Every facet and aspect of Egypt is fascinating and mesmerizing. The pyramids of Giza, Madhuri, there is nothing you can compare when you stand in front of those pyramids. Awesome proportions, and you wonder how they were built. It is even more exhilarating to enter the bottom of the pyramids, the deep descent, the narrow hallways that lead into the magnificent chambers depicting ancient Egyptian life, death, and the afterlife. Here I learned about one very intriguing financial history, the first insurance plan in recorded history in the book of Genesis. Joseph's rise from slave to a vizier is explained in two words: risk management. He devised a lasting solution to hunger by dealing with Egypt's perennial problems of droughts and good rain with this one single innovation, which is risk diversification.
That's very interesting, Arup. And you have been championing financial inclusion for 25 years, and Insurance Review has featured you as a financial inclusion crusader in 2016. You have also been speaking and writing about the need to embrace diversity and the need for greater involvement in women to transform the insurance sector. As a gentleman, why do you think diversity is important?
Madhuri, at 48%, women constitute almost half the population of India, and yet when you do surveys, you find that women are less likely to have insurance coverage compared to men. By controlling the purse strings at home, women plan for the well-being of their families, that is risk reduction and their families' futures, as risk managers too, and often not caring about their financial well-being. Often this sacrifice is overlooked by men, and henpecked husbands becomes the butt of jokes. An insurance gender gap clearly exists, with a significant proportion of women entering the workforce. Addressing women's client segments presents a market opportunity for insurers and intermediaries. However, to seize this opportunity will require gender differentiated products and new distribution strategies, as well as gender sensitive policies and regulations. And without women at the helm, this will not happen. So,
definitely, very well said, Amin, and thank you so much for all those words about women, Arup, one last question before we conclude. Risk and opportunity are two sides of the same coin. Post-COVID-19, how do you think the Insurance Institute of India can help equip the insurance industry to lay the foundations of a sustainable and resilient India?
Well, to pivot recovery back to growth, training and research needs to focus on regulatory compliance through risk-based supervision, implementation of risk-based capital regimes, ESG risks and climate-related disclosures, use of public-private partnerships in reducing protection gaps, use of insurance in blended financing and de-risking, virtualization of insurance operations, and of course, financial consumer protection and literacy. And this training pretty much needs to focus at the intermediate and senior level too, because there are a lot of people in institutions also who need to be trained on insurance.
Yeah, thank you, Arup. You have given us a lot of innovative ideas on how to take III forward, and it was really wonderful and delightful to talk to you. We have come to the end of the interaction, and on behalf of Insurance Institute of India, I wish to thank you for sharing your thoughts on my topics, and it was wonderful to have you with us, and I hope to keep in touch with you, Arup.
Anugrahitoshami Madhuri, the pleasure was entirely mine. My best wishes to you and the Insurance Institute of India.
Thank you so much, Arup. Thank you.